The following program is a public access production of Sherry Wicks and Laughing Child Productions, who assume full responsibility for its content. The content of this program does not represent the views of East Bridgewater Community Television, which serves as a forum for community expression and offers TV training, production facilities, and channel time to all East Bridgewater residents and organizations. I'm Sherry Wicks, and I'm your host for Scrapbooking on a Budget. You know, if you've been following the show, you know that this is the show that teaches you how to make beautiful and unique scrapbooking pages without spending a lot of money. What I do in my scrapbooking pages and the layouts that I'm going to teach you, I rely on old-fashioned Yankee ingenuity and creativity. Using those things that are cheap and free, we're not going to have to buy the expensive toys and all the gadgets that the scrapbooking manufacturers want you to think you need. You do not need all the stuff. You just need some creativity and some basic know-how to get scrapping. One thing I also want to add, last month I set up an email address that's just for the viewers of Scrapbooking on a Budget. I want you to use this email address to let me know what you want to see on the show. And in case you missed what that email address was, let me tell it to you. Be ready to write it down. budgetscrapper@comcast.net. Now, in case you missed it, you don't have a pen available, you're scrambling, there's going to be a graphic between segments here that's going to actually show the website address. But the main thing, I want you to email me. I want to know what you want to see on the show. I want you to see if you have any questions, comments, show suggestions, that sort of thing. So, having said that, I want you to remember to email me, okay? Now, in the last show, I talked about how busy the time between September and New Year becomes. Typically, I find that that's the time that I get behind on my daughter's school album and I get behind on my family album. And once I get behind, as you know, it's difficult to get caught up. So a couple of years ago, I found that if I had some pre-made pages just sitting in my studio ready to go, that was a great way for me to keep up with the pictures I took. So in the last show, I showed you about 7 different layouts where they're very simple. And if you can just make a couple of these layouts and have them ready, even if you're experiencing what I call scrapper's block, you know, that time when you just don't really feel very creative, you can pull out these pages and start scrapping because you've already got them made. And I have also found that by using pre-made pages, it gets my creative juices flowing again. So before I know it, I'm actually, you know, ready to start creating more pages on my own. But having the pre-made pages helped me get back to that point. From the last show, this was our back to school page. And again, it's just a very simple border with a large mat. And I showed you how if you have small stickers, you can mat them and make them a more substantial design element. Now, this was our generic fall page. And I told you that I had used a package of coordinating papers that makes designing pages very easy. And in addition to the papers coordinating, these blocks were already pre-cut. So it was very easy to do. Now, this page is our Thanksgiving page. And again, it's very basic, it's very graphic, but the design element that I pointed out was how to use ribbon and vellum for borders and to add some interest to your stuff. So that was that Thanksgiving. Now this is our generic winter, just, you know, generic kids playing in the snow, snow angels, that kind of thing. Just pretty basic, just, you know, room for 2 pictures here. Or you can split the mats up and put 4 pictures or a picture and a journaling block. The neat thing about having pre-made pages is that you can just turn them different ways and you get different looks. And also, if you use different types of paper, You can use it for different events, different holidays, that sort of thing. Now this one is obviously our Christmas page. So again, I used the pre-cut squares from the coordinating kit and the papers that all coordinated so nicely. I showed you how to do this little ribbon embellishment. It's very simple. You just punch 2 holes in your paper and run the ribbon through. But that's a Christmas page. And then I also showed you how to tear some paper and make a 2-page layout. Again, it's pretty generic Christmas, so you get those pictures developed or you print them off your computer, you've already got some pages to pop them onto, and at least that part of your Christmas is already taken care of. Now, of course, we all know that the busy season doesn't end with just Christmas. We have New Year's, and this was a page that utilized just strips cut kind of strange triangles. We have a narrow and wide, and then we just alternated across, and we used brads to attach our 2 mats. Again, all of these designs are very simple, and they're great to keep a stack of these in your scrap box or your studio or wherever you happen to do your scrapping. Now, between now and New Year's, there's another holiday that we also made a page for, and that's right here. We made this Halloween page, and I showed you how by using paper that has a white back and a colored front, you can get this white edge when you tear it. So, because this is October and this is the big Halloween month, and we're going to make 2 more Halloween pages, and we're going to make this one, and we're going to make this page. This is my particular favorite. It was so cool, and I can't wait to show you how to do it. But right now, we're going to take a little break. I need to get set up to make this page, but when we come back, we'll get started, and I hope you stick with us, and I'll see you in a bit, okay? Thanks now.
These women have one thing in common. They've all been diagnosed with ovarian cancer, but their lives have been saved by early detection. Symptoms are subtle but recognizable if you really listen to your body. A family history of certain cancers can increase your risk for ovarian cancer. You are your own best advocate, so be proactive and talk with your doctor. Visit ovariancancerawareness.org to learn the facts that could save your life.
Hi, and welcome back. You ready to get started on some Halloween pages? These 2 are the ones we're going to be making, and if you'll notice, each of the pages uses some of the specialty papers that I talked about on one of the earlier shows. This page, our pumpkin patch page, uses vellum, and what I've done, I've actually printed the title on a sheet of vellum. Now, the trick to getting this clear and crisp is you have to change the print quality setting on your printer from normal to draft. Because if you don't do that, your printer lays down too much ink. And as it comes through the printer, comes through the roller, whatever your system is, you end up getting smears like this. I don't know if you can see it, but this P has smeared badly. And down here, my journaling box, it's all smeared. It was awful. So that's when I remembered that to print on vellum, you go into your print preferences and you change the print quality settings from normal to draft. Now once you've done that, you print it out and you can tear along the edges like I've done here. See how everything's been torn. And if you'll remember on a previous show, I also showed you how to ink the edges. Now, when you buy your ink pads, you need to remember to get the dye-based ink instead of pigment ink. Pigment ink dries much slower, and it's actually better for a technique called embossing. But for inking edges on mats and different embellishments, you need a quick drying dye-based ink. So I'm just going to real quickly, I'm going to tear this. And if you remember how vellum, I said sometimes there's a grain to it. This sheet of vellum, the grain is not lengthwise. Normally it is. For some reason it's not on this one. So that must mean it's going the short way, which means it'll tear straighter that way. But I'm just tearing, I'm bracing the back of the work with my index finger. And just chop, chop, chop in here. And tear a bit off the side there. And more over here. Yeah, see, that got a nice straight cut. So the grain on this particular type of vellum was short ways and not long ways. So just experiment. One thing I want to show you before we attach. If you'll notice over here, this page, we've used mini brads to attach the title block to it, and mini brads are cute little thing. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like a little tiny nail, and it has a colored head, but the prongs can actually be split so that it adheres to the paper. Now I'm going to flip this page over and show you. Here's a prong that's been split, and it's a piece of metal. So you really don't want this rubbing on your page protector or on the page that's going to be next to it or behind it. So what I do when I use brads, I use just a little piece of scrap paper, put a piece of adhesive on it, and cover that. So that way there's an extra piece of paper between the brad and the page that comes behind it directly, or the page protector if that's how you do your scrapbooking. So flipping this back over, I want to show you that it's very easy to attach the brads. First you poke a hole, and then you kind of even it up, and then you just poke another hole right into your page. Now, from the back, one of the prongs is actually a little bit longer than the other, so that's the one that you can usually grab more easily. But this particular brand of brads, they're the same size. So that means you have to use your thumbnail. So I've split it, and now I'm just going to flatten it. And to make it extra flat, I always press it down on a hard surface. So I'm going to come over here and do this other one so we can get it on there. There is a punch tool that has the tiniest little hole in it. It's very handy to have, but you know, if you don't have one, a darning needle or just a little bit larger than a regular sewing needle, something like that would work just as well. The next thing we're going to work on is we're going to make these little pumpkins. And again, we're going to be using a piece of vellum. And vellum, I just love working with it. What I did to get the shapes, here's some extras that this sort of ovally pumpkin shape, I have to admit I actually used my oval cutter to do this, which is why it's nice and symmetrical. But what you can do, if you don't have an oval cutter, you can freehand an oval, which, you know, it's a shape, basic shape, you can do that. Or you can take a saucer, put it down, trace it, cut out the circle, and then just freehand, you know, what it takes to make your oval, and just cut that part off so that you have an oval. Now, looking around my house, I also found a smaller circle. This is just some duct tape, but find something the size about what you like. So that's easy enough. Well, once you have your oval shape, you need to put it on your vellum, and you would actually use a stylus or a ballpoint pen that the ink has no longer, it doesn't work. You just have the ballpoint on it. But I'm going to make do here, and I'm going to use the tiniest little tip of my scissors, and I'm just going to lightly follow the outline. There. And because the scissors have a bit of a point, I've actually scored the vellum, which is going to make it easier for me to tear it. So I start on the small end and just start tearing it towards you, and the scoring makes it really nice because it gives you a little groove that the vellum just sort of naturally follows along with. Okay, there we have roughly an oval or a pumpkin shape. Now, to get the vine, this is really cool. We take our green vellum, and again, we're actually going to cut a circle. So I'm going to use a smaller circle, and I'm just going to score around. And I'm going to cut. If you'll notice on the vine here, the edges are all jaggy. So once we get our circle cut, I'm going to start tearing. And I'm going to tear in a spiral pattern. And I'm going to tear towards the center of the circle. And you want your pieces to be, or the piece you're tearing off, to be between 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch wide. Now, much over 1/2 and it's going to start looking awkward, you'll have to trim it. But you see, I'm literally going in circles. Just going around and around. See, it's gotten a little fat there, but I can tweak that. But what you're doing is getting a spiral, see? And it's this spiral that you use to make the vine that follows along here. And what I've done, I've used double-sided tape, and you'll remember there's a backing that has to be peeled off. So at strategic points, I flattened the vine. I have it attached here, and here, and here, and here. And basically, you do it wherever it is necessary so that it lays relatively flat. Now, the key, one thing you have to remember, when you're doing your page and you have your pumpkins, here's our journaling pumpkin. You do not want to adhere the pumpkins yet, because the pumpkin placement is determined by how nicely the vine lays. It's a little tricky, but you can do this. So you would start with your, affix one end, and remember this double-sided tape comes in different width, but this is the 1/4 inch width. And I'm taking just the smallest piece and adhering it to the end. And you probably can't see, but there's a little piece of red backing, and that's the part that has to be peeled off. But so you don't peel off the sticky part, you want to make sure it's really stuck. So I just run my fingernail over it a couple of times, and there's that. So you want that in about that position. So we're going to fix it there, and then you just kind of move along, and see there'd be a spot right there for another piece of double-sided tape. But you just keep working with the spiral, and you connect the two, and you end up with a vine, and they're connected. So the flow of the pictures, the picture is connected to the journaling. Now, to do the leaves and the stem, that was really easy. All I did was freehand tear that. Just start with an edge, and just start tearing. And if you feel more comfortable lightly drawing it out, go ahead and do that. But the stem has a rounded edge, and then it comes in, and then back out again. So you want to tear the bottom. There, so there's your stem. And again, you would affix it with double-sided tape. And because this is a dark green, the double-sided tape doesn't really show through. Normally on vellum, you would not use tape unless it's a specialty tape. But because it's a dark green, you can get away with using the tape. Now, we've done that, and the leaves are the same thing. Again, if you feel more comfortable, just freehand a leaf and then follow that pattern. But I've done this a couple of times. So I'm going to, you start at the bottom, then work your way out, and then back in, and somehow I'm getting a square here. Yes, I've done this a few times. Okay, well, we're going to end up having to tweak this a bit because this is not a nice looking leaf. There we go, that's going to be better. There, all right. So, and then you would affix, again, you put this leaf behind the stem and move it down a bit. And just keep, tweaking with it like that. But you can see that using vellum, you just buy a couple of sheets of paper. It's very inexpensive to use. It tears beautifully. It takes ink beautifully. And it's a lot of fun to work with. But keep in mind that when you're printing on vellum, you need to change your print quality settings from normal to draft. And another thing about this title, I actually made it on the computer, and I used my word art, the feature from my word processing program called word art, and I just changed the formatting. So if you can see, each letter actually has an orange outline and black fill instead of what the computer automatically wanted to do, which was a black line with orange fill. So you just do the edit word art and format word art feature to get this. But using the computer to make your titles, it's an inexpensive way. You don't have to, it keeps you from having to buy the alphabet stickers, things like that. So we're going to take a break, and when I come back, we're going to go to this page, and we're going to use this type of specialty paper called mulberry. So stick with us. We'll be right back, okay? Thanks now.
So you don't recycle. What's your excuse? Are the bins too heavy? Perhaps there's just too much bending involved, or you think maybe there's not enough trash in the world. I know. Those recycling bins, they're the wrong color. Oh, you might break a nail on one of those plastic milk jugs, or maybe you're waiting for a professional wrestler to endorse recycling. Well, get real. People recycle because it's the right thing to do, and every little bit helps. Interested? Call 1-800-CLEANUP and recycle. A little effort makes a big difference.
Hi, and welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Before I move on to this page and demonstrate how to use mulberry paper, I just wanted to show you the different effects you can get using different types of specialty papers. This is the same pumpkin, same shape, same pattern, cut using corrugated paper. And I've used it for the body as well as the leaves and stems. And for the vine, I used raffia that I ran over a green ink pad to give it sort of a greenish tint. So I really like how this one looks, and I think it would be good with more of a country themed Halloween page as opposed to the traditional, strict black and orange that I've done on this one. Now this pumpkin is made with mulberry paper, and you get the fuzzy edges, and it's real indistinct, but it's a totally different look than you get when you use the vellums. So I'm going to show you how to use the mulberry paper and how to get nice shapes with it. If you look at this page now, I've done this title. I did this one also on the computer. But as I was going through my font list, there was no font that I liked, no lettering style that I really liked. So I ended up putting free fonts into Google, and I came up with all kind of cool sites. And what I recommend you do is to find a free font site that has a searchable index or a search feature, and just put in, spooky or Halloween letters or something like that. This particular drippy font is called Gore Font 2, and it's just awesome. I had so much fun playing with this. But I downloaded it into my fonts folder, and I, again, used my word art program and the format and edit features of that to create the swirly, and we've got thick black lines and purple fill for the letters. And now I've attached this bit of vellum to the backing, to this mat, using brads. See, there are the little brads, they're black. But because there's already a sheet of paper between the next page, the brads and the next page, I did not have to add the extra little scrap pieces. So don't be afraid of downloading fonts, and don't stick with what's available from your basic program. There's all kind of stuff out there, but just put in free fonts in your Google. Now the embellishment that we used on this page is a little happy ghost, and I had a lot of fun making this one too. But the first thing I did, I had to find a shape. So I went through and found this little guy in a novelty catalog. And I really liked the little curly tail. It makes him look kind of wispy and kind of like, Casper the Friendly Ghost. So I saw that, and then I got just a plain piece of paper, and I freehanded a shape. So I have a template now. And this template can be, this way or this way, depending on which way you want your little ghost to look. Because remember, you never want an embellishment or even a subject in a picture to be looking off the page. That sends the viewer away from what you want them to look at. So pictures and everything should be facing inward. So having said all that, you want to take your template, put it on your mulberry paper. Now some people call this tie paper, but it's a handmade paper using natural fibers. And again, do you remember, I think in the first or second episode, we used this little water pen? It's the coolest thing, but you don't have to use this. A brush from a child's watercolor set works just as well, but because I'm in the studio, I didn't want to have a jar of water around. So put your template down, and you're just going to literally trace the figure with your water pen. And you just want to lightly, you don't want to soak it, because the less water you put on the mulberry paper, the more crisp and distinct your image will be. So I'm just going all the way around. I've got the top of his little head, and now, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little image there. And we're going to just start tearing, and you just tear where the water is. It's getting a little dry on me, so it makes it a little bit harder. Working under the lights like this, things tend to get a little dry faster. So there's our little ghost, and he's ready to float onto our page. But he needs some eyes. And the only thing I did for that, I used just a regular office supply store hole punch and some black scraps. I attached his eyes with, I used double-sided tape, but you know what? I ended up having to use a glue stick for the mouth because it's so thin. There was no way I was going to get a little sliver of double-sided tape on there. Now, because mulberry paper is pretty sheer, any type of it, if you'd used your regular scrapbooking adhesive, it would have shown through. So I've attached him behind his eyes, basically. So that's the only way he's attached. But again, this double-sided tape is really sticky, so he's not going to go anywhere. So there you have our two Halloween pages to carry you through October. And the point that I want to really make on this one is don't be afraid to find some cool fonts. There's all kind of stuff out there on the internet. There's even a font out there that's named after me. So have some fun playing with the internet, okay? But I want to encourage you to use vellum in your titles, but just remember to change it. Change your print quality setting from normal to draft. Now, unfortunately, we're all out of time, so I'm going to have to say goodbye to you, but I want you to remember to catch us again next month. We'll be looking at some Thanksgiving layouts, some general fall layouts, and because Veterans Day is in November, we're going to do a special tribute to East Bridgewater veterans. I hope you'll stick with us, okay? See you then. Bye-bye.